Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at Sovereign from Black Ink Playing Cards and designer Jody Eklund. Now, Jody Eklund has a number of beautiful and highly successful decks, most notably in my mind, the Luminosity decks from 2019, which was one of my favorite decks of the year. So when Sovereign popped up on Kickstarter, I knew it was going to be one that I'd back and be excited to share on the channel. Let's get right into it. Now, the deck is inspired by the nobles, kings, and queens of the Renaissance period in Europe. It celebrates a lot of the different famous monarchs from a number of countries. And it's also inspired, though, by standard decks of cards. It's meant to be a complete reimagining of a standard deck of cards. Don't take that to mean there's anything ordinary about this deck. You'll see what I mean, though, as we go through it. Now, it comes in 3 different versions. This red one here, along with the blue one, make up the 2 standard edition tucks. And then you have the Exquisite edition in the white and gold. We'll look at all 3 of these in turn, but let's start out with the red version. All right, the tuck case was printed or created by Gambler's Warehouse using Jody Eklund's design, and it's a beautiful tuck case, one of the best I think that Gambler's Warehouse has ever produced. The top half is done all in gold foiling on this matte red cardstock with embossing all the way through, and then the bottom half has this super deep embossing. Both are very impressive. The top half with the gold centers around this lion rampant in the center, kind of like a lion you'd see on a coat of arms. This appears a number of different places, including today being used on the Scottish royal flag. And the lion rampant just means it's up on its 2 hind legs and ready for a fight. That shield in the center, though, is surrounded by tons of vine work, just twisting its way all the way up the sides. Beautifully done. Love the feel of it with the embossing, and that design continues and wraps all the way around the tuck case. Another appearance of the lion there. Reflected design, same thing you saw on the front, here on the back, and then around to the other side. So beautiful wrapping in that gold foil and embossing. But if it's at all possible, the bottom is perhaps even more impressive. It's all done with same sort of vine work going through, but just done in this super deep embossing. Gives a really luxurious feel to the tuck case overall, and is just beautiful intricacy all the way through. Just like the top, wraps all the way around the tuck case. And then at the bottom, you have gold foil printed across the top, says Sovereign and Exquisite Playing Cards. This is my one knock to the tuck case, if there is any, and it's that rather than kind of flattening out a part of the embossing here, so you could print the gold foil on top, they just printed it right on top of the embossing, which leads to a couple of parts that look maybe a little sloppier than they should, like you look at the S over there. So I think it's a shame, but a small quibble on an otherwise fantastically designed tuck. As you go to the bottom here, you have some ad copy for Jody Eklund, Black Ink Playing Cards, and USPCC, who printed the deck. And on the top, it says Sovereign with more gold foil details. Gold foiling continues on the inner flaps, all 3 of them, and there's nothing printed on the interior of the tuck. So fantastic tuck case by Gambler's Warehouse. Can't say enough about it. I think it's absolutely beautiful, nearly perfect. All right, looking at the cards, we'll start with the back design. Here it is, all done in a series of red, black, and silver metallic inks. Super shiny silver metallics, almost to the point that they look white. And hopefully this shows up well on camera because it looks so impressive in hand. You know, that silver can almost look a little bit washed out with the white, but when you look at it up close or in the right light, it truly is impressive. Begins with this large circular element in the center. I think that's something pretty common with Jody Eklund decks. A lot of his decks start out with a circular design in the center and then build out from there. And this one is kind of follows in that pattern. And lots of different radial elements, including the pips going through there in the center representing the 4 different suits. Still maintains a full 2-way back design. You have the 2 lions rampant on either side, and then lots of scroll work flourishing out and just fanning out everywhere, all done in that fantastic silver metallic ink. Finishes out with red, black, and silver borders, and then a white poker border around the edge. Nice thin white poker border. So beautifully done back design. Extra cards, you get a pair of jokers. They are not identical. There's one red and one black. They both feature the same character on them. A jester, classic court jester, all dressed in motley. Very classic look to them. This one carrying the scepter in both hands. The other one has moved the scepter to one hand and has a few playing cards there in the other hand. I really like the artwork on these. The characters and the people that Jody Eklund draws always does a fantastic job, and these jokers really showcase that well. So there's the two jokers. You also get a black ink ad card, which ironically is done in silver metallic ink, not black ink. And then you get a cheat sheet card for the deck. So this is the one that tells you all the different characters that are going to be featured on all of the courts. And as you can see right off, each one of the suits represents a different country. So you have Spain, England, France, and Scotland represented. And you get a little preview of the characters that we'll talk about in a second. The aces. So the ace of spades is definitely the one power ace, and here it is. Features a black and white, beautifully intricate design here in the center. The spade pip featured in the center, and then surrounded by just an explosion of detail. You get the lions rearing up on either side. I love the helmet with the crown on top that's at the very top of the circle, the beautiful leaf work exploding out, and then the ribbons around the edge. There's some Latin here in the center that I can't quite make out because some of it is covered up, but at the bottom you've got Absolutum Imperium, which means absolute power, which sovereigns did truly have. Name of the deck once more represented at the top, black ink at the bottom. And then you have the kind of ornate index and ornate pip there in the corner. Still very readable, but given that extra little bit of flourish. So there's your ace of spades. The other three aces are not power aces at all, but are impressive in their own right. And what you'll immediately notice on these, in addition to the ornate, deeply shaded pips there in the center that almost have that sort of 3D look, you also have a really prominent background in all three. So you have this framed on the red cards. It's this red background. You'll see here the heart and the diamonds. They have slightly different patterning, but a very similar, almost brushed on look. And then a watermark of that lion rampant one more time. I love the detailing on the pips. I love this super deep shading as well. And then the black cards and the club here you'll see is replaced with a blue background instead of the red. So there's your three aces to go with that power ace of spades. And then the number cards are all the same as what we looked at with the aces. Slightly smaller pips, but that same frame in the background. You get the little elements here on the side as well. So there's your spade pips, and we'll go really quickly through these into the diamonds. I like the 3D effect that's achieved with those. I think that's really well done. And then into the clubs. Quick look at those, and finishing out with the hearts. So there's all of your number cards, but let's get into the courts. All right, so right off the bat, you'll see what I meant before when I said that these are fully custom but classically inspired courts. They definitely resemble right off the classic bicycle courts, whether it's the general style of the clothing. Yes, it's been embellished with Jody Eklund style, but general poses, the items in their hand are all going to be familiar from a bicycle deck, but they're all completely redrawn. And I love the muted, blue, red, and yellow color palette. Definitely gives it a more elegant feel than that deep primary colors that are used in a classic bicycle deck. Just elevates this whole thing. And the faces are done with skin tones. I'm not normally a fan of skin tone on court cards at all, but these with that muted and kind of faded look, I think does still come across very nicely. And you have the nice color in the background as well. Now the four jacks are not going to represent royals like the queens and the kings are, or at least not going to reflect named royals. These are just generic aristocrats that are representing the four different countries. So we have the spade here from England, the diamond who's from France, and then over here on the club we have a Spanish noble, and then on the heart is Scotland with that deep red hair. So you can see the 4 different nobles. I love the just subtle expressions on all their faces, whether it's that sort of aloof look here, the disinterested look on the Jack of Diamonds, or the angry look on the Jack of Clubs. It gets nice little facial expressions in there as well. Now the queens and kings, though, are going to represent some of the most famous nobles from their respective countries. And spades, if you remember, represent the nation of England. And so the Queen of Spades here, this is Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth II, of course, is the monarch today, but you have to go all the way back to the 1600s to see the first Queen Elizabeth, and this is her here. She was actually known as the Virgin Queen because she never married throughout her entire life. I love that beautiful jeweled scepter in her hand. And then the King of Spades. This is probably the most infamous of the kings of England. This is Henry VIII. He was married multiple times over, had 6 different wives, had some of them imprisoned, some of them executed even, as he was trying to have a male heir. So he went through a number of different wives throughout his life. And in fact, he actually formed the Church of England in part so that he could have a reason to divorce, which is something that the church in Rome would not allow. So he was excommunicated from the Church of Rome and formed his own church in England. Now, turning to the diamonds, we're going to travel out of England and we're going to go into France for this. And the Queen of Diamonds is maybe the most famous worldwide. This is Marie Antoinette. She was one of the ones who sparked the French Revolution, and so she was one of the last monarchs within France. She was famous for the line, "Let them eat cake," which is sort of a play on the fact that she was maybe dismissive of the poor in France and thinking that they could just eat cake if they ran out of bread. It wasn't actually a line that she ever said, but it was used as a symbol for her disinterest in the poor. And so there is Marie Antoinette represented on the Queen of Diamonds. And look, she's got the little flower in her hand, just like you'd see on a classic court card. And then the King of Diamonds, this one is one of the kings who ruled over a time of great prosperity in France. This is Louis XIV. Now, he was known as the Sun King, ruled from a very young age. He actually came to power at the age of 4. So he ruled for a very long time. I believe the longest ruling monarch in France. All right, now going to the clubs, and for this one we're going to go to Spain, and the Queen and King go together. This is husband and wife. This is Isabella I on the Queen, and the King is Philip II. They together ruled over Spain, so they were co-monarchs, and they were actually the ones who sponsored Christopher Columbus's journey to the New World. And so they were the ones who sort of launched that famous trip that Christopher Columbus took to America. And then last but not least, we're going to go to Scotland, and we have 2 more monarchs here. This is Mary, Queen of Scots, who is perhaps best known for a lot of the revolts that she led against England. Very beautiful look on her face there, but she was ultimately executed for high treason against England. So there's Mary, Queen of Scots. And the king over here, this is the first king who ruled over a unified England and Scotland. So he was actually monarch over both, and this is James I. He's there in that classic suicide king pose. Now, he didn't commit suicide or anything like that, but he is in the classic King of Hearts pose. So there is James I. So beautifully designed courts, just really well done. Now, these are printed on premium stock by USPCC, so they handle beautifully with that air cushion finish. No complaints on that front. Just fan beautifully cut, just like we've come to expect out of USPCC. Can't really say too much negative about the handling overall. So that is the red deck, but we have a couple other decks to take a look at. Now, the other standard deck is really, for the most part, just a color swap. The card faces are the same, so I'm not going to look too much at those, but you do get some differences, of course, in the tuck case, done in this dark teal color, which I think looks great with that gold. The red did too, but the teal looks quite nice. Same tuck case, otherwise, same design elements. The card faces themselves are also the same, but you do get a new back design. It definitely has more of an ethereal look, that light teal with the silver. I think the silver actually ends up showing up a little bit better on this one compared to the red, at least for me. I don't know, maybe not for you. But they both look great. This one just takes on more of an ethereal look, whereas the red has a much kind of bolder look to it overall, kind of more aggressive look. But both are equally impressive. The card faces themselves, like I said before, are exactly the same. No differences on these whatsoever, but there's your two standard versions. Now, there is one more version to go, and that's this one, the Exquisite Edition, and it really ups the ante. So you'll see the tech case is completely redesigned, has some different elements, much cleaner look to it overall. It's white with much more reserved use of the gold foil. Definitely accents that lion much more heavily in the center, and sort of a less embossing, kind of more tactically done embossing all the way through. And you get more flat areas here. Really gives it a refined look, and I love the contrast of this one with the other two tucks. So there's the front of the tuck case. As you turn to the side, you have designed by Jody Eklund on one side, finest quality playing cards on the other, more ad copy on the bottom. And the back features a sovereign seal, complete with that lion rampant in the center. Inner flaps feature some more embossing and gold foil work. You have more lions on the inner flaps here as well. And unlike the other two, you get some beautiful interior printing as well. That vine work pattern that continues all the way through the tuck case. Really beautifully done. The card faces, just like the other two decks, feature a lot of the same card faces, but you get a completely redone back design on this one, and here it is. It's all done in Metalux foil. Beautiful glowing gold against that white background. It's a classic color combination and one that's executed really, really well in this card. I will say Metalux sometimes has a tendency to lose some of the detail, and this one's no exception. You know, like if you look up here, you'll see how the Metalux starts to lose a little bit of detail in that swirl or in the detail of the lion. So I would have loved to see this maybe done with Cardamundi or Expert, who can do a little bit more precision foiling compared to Metalux, but it doesn't make this much less impressive of a back design. It's still really beautifully done. I love that gold foiling as an addition on the Exquisite Edition of the deck. Now, otherwise, card faces, again, no changes from the other two versions. You're going to see the same thing on the card faces, but you get that beautiful redesigned tuck and fantastic new back design in gold foil. So that's it. And I will say on this one, the Metalux, you will get a little bit of degradation in handling, a little bit less smooth, not much. They still handle pretty well and definitely durable with the finish that's applied on top of that gold metallic ink. Metalux still handles really nicely to me. So that's it. That is the look at Sovereign from Jody Eklund and Black Ink playing cards. Hope you enjoyed this look. Hey, make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings, and let me know what else you want to see in the future. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.